This video is going to talk about how to find the area of a triangle. Every single triangle that you could make can be made out of half of a rectangle. So by doubling the triangle, you can create a rectangle. For example, I have a triangle here, and here to the side, when I extend the sides out, you can see I can make a rectangle. Over here, I have a triangle, and then doubling it, you see a rectangle. Over here, same thing. I have a triangle. When you split the sides, it will create a rectangle. So we're going to use parts of the rectangle formula to figure out how to find the area of the triangle. So, on the area of the rectangle, we have the length and the width. And remember that length and width can be shifted around because all you have to do is tilt the rectangle another direction and you're going to get the length and the width switched. So, to find the area of a triangle, we're going to use those same measurements and then take half of them to only count the triangle and not the doubled part that makes the rectangle. So, we're going to go back to the same thing we were doing with parallelogram, which is going to use base and height instead of length and width, because length and width are just for the rectangle. For the triangle, we're going to have bases and heights. Here, the height is where the rectangle would be, or it can also be drawn perpendicular, to the base, and it's parallel to the width, it's just in a different spot. What you have to be careful of is it doesn't matter which side of the triangle is your base. It does matter where you get your height from. So if I choose this side to be my base, my height should be perpendicular to my base. So I can't use this side for the base unless the height is perpendicular to it, going from the base all the way up to the tip of to the far tip of the triangle. Words are a thing. So I have base and height. Here I have base and I have height. It's going from the base all the way up to the far tip of the triangle. And then over here I have my base, and my height is here, going from my base all the way to the tip of my triangle. And the base and the height are always perpendicular to each other. So, how do I write half of base times height? I can actually write that in at least two ways. There's just going to be two ways I'm going to go over right now. The first thing I can do is I can write half base times height. And this is the way that you'll typically see me write it because this is how I'm most comfortable with writing it. You can also write it as base over height, but as base times height over 2. So you have the base and the height, and then you're going to divide it by 2. Either one of these ways will get you the same answer. So be aware that it doesn't matter which one you choose so long as you choose one of them. I will most frequently be working with this one just because that's the one I'm accustomed to. You are also welcome to use the other one. So let's go ahead and let's find the measures of some areas of some triangles. We have our sample problems over here. The first one that we're going to look at, oh, we skipped one. Let's get that one back in frame. Small movement. The first one that we're going to look at over here is this purple triangle down below. What you might be able to tell about this purple triangle is that it has some extra information in it. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what we need. We need 1/2 times base times height. So what I'm going to do with that information is I'm going to take the base and the height, remembering that they have to be perpendicular, they have to be at 90 degrees to each other. I see that this is the only height I'm given, so I have to use this base. So area equals 1/2, the base is 8, the height is 4. 1/2 times 8 times 4. So when I multiply these, I can choose to multiply these in any order I want because it's just multiplication. So the commutative property says it doesn't matter what order you multiply in so long as you multiply everything. I'm going to choose to multiply half times 8 first, because I'd rather be multiplying smaller numbers together. Half of 8, or 1/2 times 8, is going to be 4. I could figure out that we have 1/2 times 8 over 1 equals 8 over 2 equals 4. Or I could just remember that this says half of 8, and half of 8 is 4. So I'm going to multiply that 4 times 4 and get 16 inches squared. Remember that finding the area, because it's a two-dimensional measurement, has to be squared or to the second power when you label it. Let's go ahead and let's look at the red triangle, which is a little bit higher up, which will make it easier. Write down my formula again. I'll use the other formula this time, just so that you can kind of get a hang of it. A equals BH over 2. Area equals base times height over 2. So the next thing I'm going to do is plug in the numbers. The base here is 3. The height is 5. So I'm going to say 3 times 5 over 2. To solve this, I need to solve what's on top first, or I could find half of each, but that would take a little bit extra time. A equals 3 times 5 is 15 over 2. Now, how do I find 15 over 2 that's not an even number? That is okay. All you need to do, you can remember to make the ln divide. 15 will go on the inside, 2 will go on the outside. 2 goes into 15, well 2 can't go into 15, but the closest I can get is 7. 2 times 7 is 14. 15 minus 14 is 1. And I can make this into a decimal or into a fraction. I'm going to choose into a fraction. So my area will be 7.5 meters squared. Let's go ahead and look at my other two triangles. This first triangle down here should be orange. You can't really tell the difference between orange and red on here. I don't have the base, but I do have the area. So we're going to work backwards to figure out what the base might be. First step, write out the formula. Second step, plug in the numbers that I know. I know that the area is 28 feet. So I'm going to say 28 equals, half doesn't change. I don't know the base, so I have to be very careful it looks like a B and not a 6. I do know that the height is 4. And because those are all being multiplied together, I can switch them around to any order I want. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to keep the 28, and I'm going to shift the order around here. I'm not going to multiply 1/2 times B because I don't know what that is. I'm not going to multiply B times 4 because I don't know what that is. But I can switch it around so it says 1/2 times 4 times B. And then I can find half of 4 and know that 28 equals half of 4 is going to be 2B, or 2 times B. So in order to solve that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 2 to get rid of that 2 and leave the B alone. On this side, I'll just be left with the variable, and on the other side, half of 28 is 14, so I know that my base will be 14 feet. One more example here. We are going to look at this triangle. On this triangle, I have the base, I have the area, I don't have the height, so let's work backwards to figure that out. A equals 1/2 B times H. Always write out that formula first, and make sure you don't put it right in the glare. So A equals 1/2 B times H, so I'm going to plug in what I know. And I actually know A. I know that A is 60. I know that the 1/2 stays the same. And then I have the B and the H. I don't know what H is, but I do know that the base is going to be 12. So now I have 60 equals 1/2 times 12 times H. So let's go ahead and solve. First thing, the 60 is going to stay the same. I need to find half of 12. Well, I know that half of 12 is 6. So now I have 60 equals 6H. So I need to get rid of that 6, so I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides and know that my height is 10. So my height is going to be 12 meters. What I would like for you to do on your homework is to find the area of a triangle with a base of 5 and a height of 4.